Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be looking at the structure for an academic essay's body paragraphs. So remember that your essay consists of your introduction, 3 body paragraphs typically, and then your conclusion. We've already discussed the introduction and the overall purpose of an essay, which is articulating an argument about the story that you're reading or that you've been assigned, and developing that argument logically, point by point, with a main argument in your thesis, and then 3 main ideas that you will use to help you to prove or develop that thesis. A body paragraph's purpose overall is to take one of those main ideas, state it directly, and then develop it and explore it using examples from the text, building an argument point by point, step by step. After having established the framework of your essay in your introduction, you can proceed to develop each of your main ideas in a body paragraph of its own. Signaled by an indentation, 1 tab or 5 character spaces, a paragraph is a group of closely related sentences that develop a main idea. And here, I'll pause for a moment to discuss this idea of closely related. When you're developing a body paragraph, you have to be very careful to ensure that each sentence leads logically to the next, so that the idea that you develop in one sentence is then built upon and clearly connected to the next one. So as I'm explaining what a body paragraph does, there's no division or break between what I'm saying. I move from sentence to sentence, elaborating on, building on what I have said previously, and sentence by sentence, idea by idea, I convey an understanding of what the body paragraph is. In the same way, the body paragraph develops the main idea and the interpretation of quotations, step by step, sentence by sentence. Watch out for the common problem wherein a body paragraph states an idea in a sentence and then makes a kind of logical leap. Remember, as you're reading your body paragraph and editing it, right, developing it, and then revising it, to read it aloud. Think about what you're saying in one sentence and see if it follows, or what comes in the next sentence actually follows from what you just said in the previous sentence. Paragraphs help to subdivide information into manageable sections. Generally, a new paragraph is introduced when the main idea changes. Well-written paragraphs require the following. You require coherence, adequate development, and evidence. Coherence means that everything it coheres together, it sticks together. Your paragraph is focused around proving one main idea, and everything comes together in the paragraph to prove that one thing. Adequate development means that you have your main idea in the topic sentence, the main idea that supports your thesis, and then everything in the paragraph develops that idea fully and completely. Nothing is left out. You develop that idea to its logical and complete extent. And lastly, every paragraph requires evidence. You always need quotations. Quotations are the backbones of any essay. They're the backbones of any argument. Because in a body paragraph, you are going to be analyzing or interpreting those quotations in the same way that we did when we discussed analysis in The Spider's Thread, or that we will when we discuss that story. With a body paragraph, you are using examples from the story that you analyze in detail to help you prove your main idea, or to show that something is true in the story. An essay requires a minimum of 3 body paragraphs to effectively support its thesis. Each paragraph should have a distinct yet parallel focus in its major idea, distinct in that it is a separate focus that is required to avoid overlap between your paragraphs, and parallel to ensure that each paragraph proves an equal aspect of your thesis. So, although your paragraphs are dealing with different main ideas, they're not all talking about the same thing. They're all unified to the same purpose. They're all pointing to the same overall argument. All 3 paragraphs, like a supporting argument, help to buttress and support the thesis of your essay. The major idea for a body paragraph should be announced at the beginning of your paragraph in a topic sentence. So the topic sentence, the very first sentence of your paragraph, establishes what it is that you're going to be discussing, or what it is that you're going to try to prove in this paragraph, and also connects back to the thesis to make it clear how this idea relates to the thesis. To adequately develop the major idea of your paragraph, you'll need to have 2 to 3 supporting arguments, or 2 to 3 examples. A supporting argument provides a more precise demonstration of the main idea for your paragraph, and each one requires a primary quotation to effectively illustrate it. So you always need at least 2 quotations, 1 quotation for each point that you're going to have in your paragraph. Usually it's 3, you can sometimes get away with 2. Secondary quotations may also be needed for support. A secondary quotation is just a reference to something outside of the story that you're discussing. That could be a work of academic criticism, like a journal article. It could be something that was referenced in class by me. It could be background information. For instance, let's say you're dealing with something in the Spider's thread about Japanese cultural traditions and beliefs regarding the afterlife. You would have to cite that from some academic source in order to substantiate your position and your interpretation of the essay that is, or your interpretation of the story that is predicated on understanding of that cultural tradition. Likewise, let's say there's a biblical allusion, an allusion to something in the Bible in the story that you're reading. You may need to reference the Bible as a secondary source using a secondary quotation in order to support your interpretation of the primary source, the story itself. After having demonstrated and developed your major idea through your supporting ideas and examples, you'll need to wrap up your paragraph with a concluding sentence. That concluding sentence summarizes the major idea of the paragraph. It's like a restatement of your topic sentence using different language in such a way that essentially concludes everything, that brings everything together. It advances your argument, or it shows how your argument has advanced over the course of the paragraph. Now, your topic sentence serves double duty. That topic sentence helps you to transition from the previous paragraph. The last sentence of your paragraph reestablishes the main idea of the paragraph you've just written. The topic sentence of your next paragraph connects to the previous idea and introduces the new one for this paragraph. The body paragraph at a glance, a breakdown of what a body paragraph should look like. You have your topic sentence identifying the major idea for the paragraph. You introduce your supporting argument A. So you make a kind of claim or an observation about the story. This observation is something that helps you to prove the main idea or to show the main idea in the topic sentence. You then develop the supporting argument in more detail. So you explain anything that you need. Then you provide a primary quotation to prove supporting argument A. You introduce the quotation, providing necessary context. So you describe who is speaking, when this happens in the story. You don't need an expansive amount of information. You just need to remind your reader or inform your reader where they can go to find this quotation. Now, you don't want to do this mechanically and say, well, this quotation demonstrates, or in this following quotation. What you want to do is say, provide context. When Darth Vader chops off Luke Skywalker's hand, Luke Skywalker says, quotation, where he denies that Vader is his father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. That would be an introduction to the quotation. You've told me what's going on in the context of the quotation, who is speaking in the delivery of the quotation, and then you've given me the quotation integrated into your own sentence. Cite and document the quotation using MLA citation format that we've discussed, and then discuss the quotation in detail. That means that you need to show how, through specific, logically developed analysis of the details inside that quotation, how that proves your supporting argument. You want to use the example, the evidence that you provided, to prove the point. And you can't just assume that the evidence stands on its own. You need to delve into the specific actions of characters, their feelings that are revealed inside that quotation, the language that's used in that quotation, or the symbol that's inside that quotation, or the other literary device, in order to develop that point, in order to show how specifically and exactly this example really does prove your supporting argument A. Then you have maybe a sentence or a half of a sentence that transitions into supporting argument B and develops supporting argument B. So you establish what supporting argument B, or 2, is, and you show how it derives from, or it leads off of, or follows from supporting argument A. And you do the same thing again, providing the evidence for it, analyzing the evidence, and showing how that piece of evidence, how that quotation, helps you to prove supporting argument B. If outside research is required, then you can integrate that and develop it as well. Okay, so as an example of this kind of body paragraph, in addition to the use of space in Monroe's story, the male and female characters are also divided in terms of their expected behaviors. So that's my main idea. That's the thing, the argument that I want to prove about how male and female characters are divided in the story. Then I introduce supporting argument A. It's basically a claim about the story that I'm going to expand. The men are aligned with the masculine world of strength and detachment. They perform their duties silently and without emotional display, as indicated in the scene following the shooting of the horse of Mac. So I introduce the quotation. I provide context. Where is this happening? What's going on at this moment? Well, it's the scene where the horse Mac is shot. And then I provide the quotation. The two men walked over and looked at him in a businesslike way. They bent down and examined his forehead where the bullet had gone in. Now, it's not just enough for me to leave this quotation as it stands. I need to analyze it. I need to show how this example, in specific detail, really shows that the men are aligned with the masculine world of strength and detachment. I've given my claim, I've given my piece of evidence, and now I need to analyze my evidence to prove my claim. Here, the father and Henry are not only associated with the act of killing the animals, but they are also expected to respond to the shooting of Mac in a business-like way. Look at what I've done here. I've taken something, some specific detail inside the quotation, and I referred back to it. I'm using that to show how they're supposed to be detached. Right? They're doing this in a business-like way. What I would probably do here if I was commenting on this essay or writing this essay myself and a student handed this to me, I would say, you probably need another sentence right here where you expand on this idea of doing it in a business-like way. Tell me about how this business-like way really does show that they perform their duties silently and without emotional display. Really tie it into that. Really show how it proves the point that you're trying to make. But what I like about this paragraph is it has actually used a piece of evidence, an example from the quotation that it's provided, to delve into it and explain how this point is proven, or how this example proves the claim that's just been made. Now, I start to transition into the next part. I start to transition into the next point by connecting to what I've just said and also introducing the next example or the next claim that I'm going to make and then support with an example. In contrast, the women of the story are encouraged to display delicacy and to behave passively. So I have my claim here. The women of the story are encouraged to display delicacy and behave passively. And I also have a little bit of a transition in contrast. As you're using transitional phrases and words like in contrast, also, moreover, or developing transitional sentences like this one, the women of the story are encouraged to display delicacy and behave passively, make sure that your transition makes sense. Right? Each transition word, like in contrast or moreover, implies a certain relationship between the ideas. In contrast says I'm setting these two ideas against each other. They're, well, contrasting. Moreover means this idea actually supports the idea I just said, or the idea I just explored in the supporting argument A. So make sure that your use of transitional kinds of words like these, or transitional phrases or transitional sentences, really does logically connect the argument you're making and the 2 points, how they're supposed to develop and connect to one another. Now I provide the example. The narrator explains her indoctrination to the world of femininity by her grandmother, and I provide this block quotation. In an essay, if I have a quotation that is longer than 4 lines, as this one is with 5 lines, I need to use a block quotation. The block quotation double indents the paragraph, or double indents the quotation. It doesn't have quotation marks around it. And I also have the standard citation, the author's last name and the page number. Then I provide analysis of the quotation. Despite her attempted defiance, the narrator is progressively socialized to adopt traditional feminine traits and to thus relinquish her conventionally masculine behaviors. And then that is my analysis. I show how this example ties into the main idea I stated in the topic sentence. And then social pressures to behave in accordance with one's gender leads to the separation of men and women in the story. I restate the main idea. I use different language, but I tie everything together and return to that core insight. That is the basic structure of a body paragraph. We're going to look at several body paragraphs as we move into the next story, and we discuss essay format with respect to John Collier's The Chaser.